Hello, and welcome back to Drive Home Reviews End of the Year Countdown. So, last time we looked at the 10 worst films of 2019, and before we jump over to the best films, I like to take this little detour. So, for those of you who are new to Drive Home Reviews and our End of the Year Countdowns, let me explain the logic behind the meh list. I tend to believe that with any kind of media that we consume, be it movies, television, art, books, music, whatever, that only a small percentage of it can be considered, the best, the high watermarks, the Casablancas, the Citizen Kanes, the things we compare everything else to, the measuring stick that everything else is trying to reach. And a relatively small portion of it, unless you just hate everything, is made up of the stuff that you hate. The stuff that you just can't stand, the stuff that rubs you the wrong way. And everywhere in the middle is the meh. These are the things that aren't offensive enough to really be considered the worst, but they're lacking certain things that push them up into that upper echelon. And yet they tend to be the things that we watch the most. So I think cutting out that middle section is cutting out a huge chunk of media and a huge chunk of what makes up the year that I watch. So I like to take a second and say, let's talk about those films that landed somewhere in the middle and give them their day in the sun. So that's the logic behind my top 10 meh lists of 2019. Here we go. Number 10, Last Christmas. So this one is one that I was debating a little bit about because a month or so later, I'm just kind of like, I don't really remember much of it. And then when I thought about it, I was like, no, actually, I thought that movie was fairly charming. Emilia Clarke, of course, as I've said, has found her niche in the kind of middle-of-the-road romantic comedy section. It actually had an interesting story and a twist that I did not see coming, even though I was pretty sure I was going to guess it. And overall left you with the feeling of, of good holiday cheer. The bad side? Well, I know that they named it after, the song, but man, they really went all in on it. They just sucked that song off until it couldn't be sucked anymore. I don't mind you're going to name something after something else, but you could tone it down a bit. But still an enjoyable picture, and one that I won't lie, I got a little choked up during. Number 9, 21 Bridges. So this is one that I was kind of hoping was going to be a little bit better. And unfortunately, when I went and saw it, it was another corrupt cop movie that, especially since just coming off like 3 or 4 corrupt cop movies that I'd seen, I was hoping this one was going to be a little fresher, a little bit more original, and was actually going to show us that not all cops are horrible people. So that was very disappointing. That being said, Chadwick Boseman is a powerful screen presence. I liked a lot of his stuff, and it generally had some moments such as the climactic chase scene, which were very intense and very entertaining. So, bit of an unoriginal story, but it pulls it off in the acting and some of the skillful directing. Number 8, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot. So this is a weird one because this one I didn't see in the theaters. I bought it on DVD and then reviewed it. And it's just a weird movie. And it's a weird movie that doesn't hang together as well as it probably should. Probably because it is so weird. But what puts it on this list and why I think it's memorable, quite frankly, is Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott is phenomenal in this. And I think a movie is good when there's a monologue or a moment in it that I memorize, that I go back over because it's just so well written and so well done. And his monologue there around the middle about killing Hitler and what it cost him personally and emotionally and how it didn't make any difference because the war kept going. That is a phenomenal speech, and he just sells the hell out of it. I also got to give big ups to Larry Miller, who I'm never really a big fan of, but who played a great character here. So, yeah, weird movie that didn't quite work well enough to justify it, but some great performances that kind of see it home. Number 7. Jumanji, The Next Level. This is another one that I don't really know what to say about. It was a fun little movie. It's ironic that this one and its immediate predecessor, two movies about video games, are probably the best video game movies ever made. You feel like you're watching a video game. It's structured like a video game, but unfortunately, like a video game sequel, it tends to get a little overbloated. It's not as tight and as unique as the first time through, but spending time with these characters again, The Rock and Kevin Hart don't do as well as they did in the first, but Karen Gillan and especially Jack Black. This is, again, eat my words on Jack Black. He makes this movie. He is so funny, and that alone made it worth watching. Number 6. Frozen 2. I know, I'm the only person in the world who didn't like Frozen 2. Well, put it on the list of films that I'm the only person in the world that didn't like. I felt like the plot went absolutely nowhere. I felt like the songs were half-formed and didn't leave a lasting impression. And it seems like a film that's far too interested in its own brand management than actually telling a full, complete story. It's too busy loading the bases for Frozen 3 and 4. So why does it make this list? Well, first of all, the animation is still gorgeous. And even in a movie where she doesn't move forward that much, Elsa is still probably the greatest Disney creation since Belle. So anytime you get to hang out with a character like that, I consider it a win. Number 5. Hobbs and Shaw. What can I say? It appeals to my stupid manness. I mean, there is nothing redeemable here in terms of story, character, or anything like that. This movie is just fucking dumb, and I had a ball watching it. The Rock and Jason Statham work so well off each other. Idris Elba is clearly having a fun time. I like the end fight scene and all that is just so good. I'm never much for film that they say, well, just turn off your brain. But this is one that I just said, I'm just gonna go and turn off my bloody brain. And you know what? I think it's fine to do every so often. Not every film needs to make you reevaluate the way you live your life. Sometimes you just want to see The Rock pulling on a helicopter while hanging on the back of a reconstructed truck. Is that so wrong? Number 4. Fighting with My Family. So it just dawned on me how many movies starring The Rock have made it onto my meh list. That's now the 3rd one. But be that as it may, this pseudo-biography of WWE superstar Paige, sometimes movies just hit you right when you need them to, and they have a line or something in them that just is what you need to hear right when you need to hear it. And the thing that always brings me back to this one is the line when she's talking to her brother, because he's mad because she got selected for the WWE and he didn't, and he's acting like a jackass, and she's talking to him about all the things that he's done. He taught a blind kid how to wrestle, and she says to him, just because thousands of people aren't cheering for you doesn't mean what you do isn't important. And I think that's a lesson that our number 1 worst film might have been able to take a little something from. Add on to that, just a great performance by Lena Headey, who's had a hell of a year. Between this, a lot of buzz for Little Women, and she's going to be in the new Black Widow movie, so a lot going on for her. So why is it on the meh list? Well, Because the whole thing, unfortunately, while it's a good movie and well done and well acted, the whole thing just kind of has that unpleasant taste of WWE editorializing to try to make them look like the softer, warmer company that they're really not. Number 3, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. This one's a nostalgia trip, folks. I'm gonna be straight up with you. It's a movie that sticks so close to me because it's a filmmaker who I really love, a film series that I really enjoyed, harkening back to a time in my life that was really important. You know, and what I like about this movie is that Kevin Smith himself makes no bones about it. He released it the way he did as a Fathom Events. He said, nobody wants to see this. This is a thing I made for my friends. Something I made to hang out with my friends again. And I have all the respect in the world for him for that. Even so, it's still a fun movie. It's fun to see how the View Askew-averse, a universe that primarily existed in that kind of college kid, angry 20-year-old mindset, how that universe has adapted to a new decade, a new millennium, and a new generation of not being the young upstarts anymore. How do Jay and Silent Bob, two stoners, exist when they're in their 40s? And it's still filled with a lot of heart and a lot of great stuff, a lot of fun. Doesn't hang together especially well, but again, this movie was made for the fans, and as a fan, I dug it. Number 2, Ready or Not. You know that you gotta be an especially good horror film to get me to like it. Well, this one did. This one, I said it in the review, I'll say it here. What I like about it is that it keeps its tongue firmly implanted in its cheek. It's over the top, it's goofy, it's not taking itself too seriously, it's having fun with its premise, and as such, even someone like me, who is not a horror fan by any stretch of the imagination, can have fun with it too. Still a bit gory for my taste. I hate the scene where she's crawling out and has to use the whole shot in her hand through this. Just uggs me out. But I had a great time with it, and yeah, just a fun film. So you know you got to be good when a horror film makes one of my lists. And the number 1 meh film of 2019 is Spiderman: Far From Home. So let's be clear here. I love this movie. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think it was an excellent jump off from the first one. It's the perfect film to follow up of the heavier things going on in Avengers Endgame. Tom Holland really is now owning the role of Spider-Man. You don't feel like he's inheriting it anymore. It's his role. The supporting cast is great, and all of them get some fun moments to shine. I really like the way they reimagine his villains. I love the way things they did with the Vulture in the last one. I love what they did with Mysterio here. Stuff that makes sense and works within a modern framework. I also like that they took the action out of New York for once. Spider-Man's a very New York-based hero, so it's nice to get him out somewhere else. So then why is this on the meh list? Well, because of the same reasons its predecessor topped the meh list the year it came out, because I think Spider-Man should be more than just a meh. Especially considering all the drama that went on with him after the film came out between who owns the rights, are we going to get another Tom Holland Spider-Man in the MCU, you know, that whole pissing contest. After all that work to get him in there, and his adventures don't feel epic. And I really think they should. I always leave these just feeling a little let down. Not a lot, still enjoyed the movie a lot, but I think there's more you can do with him, and I think that Spider-Man should be your torch carrier. That's the way it should be. And yeah, that's me. But I think they've loaded the bases well enough. I think we might be getting something like that for their third one. And hey, anything that brings back J.K. Sims as J. Jonah Jameson is good with me. So there they are, folks. Those are my meh films of 2019. We got one more list to go, so come on back. We've talked about the worst, we've talked about the rest. Now it's time to talk about the best. So I will see you next time for the top 10 movies of 2019. Till then, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.